In late October 2023, Ocean Watch Australia was awarded a travel bursary from FRDC to attend the Ropeless Consortium in Nova Scotia, Canada, with 5 fisher representatives from around Australia. The group attended the conference to learn more about advances in ropeless fishing technology and whale entanglement mitigation. Hear from our fishers what they thought.
I'm Andre Gorrison. I represent the spanner crab and blue swimmer crab fishery in Queensland. I think the obvious one would be that it's going to be only a matter of time before we start to see some level of legislation being introduced here based on what they're doing. Second part of it was I was quite interested in the fact that the market has actually started to demand some kind of whale safety protocol be adhered to or recognised similar to an MSC certification to be able to sell product in the US. So that's something that's interesting because obviously that will affect us from this point forward. And the third thing was that the gear development guys seem to be, or the vast majority seem to be producing some pretty cool high-tech stuff. The takeaway was out of the developers that we saw, which were most of them, I'd say 90% are quite high cost at this point. And that I think that's probably something that will not go down well in our market, that's for sure. I think for the blue swimmer crab, yes, definitely. It is definitely it's a system that sort of you leave your pots untended. In terms of spanner crab, no, because we sort of go through our gear quite quickly. So we're officially called a tended fishery, so our gear is only sort of in the water for an hour and a half, 2 hours max. However, I think that some of the gear would be beneficial in terms of being able to, like we talked about, some kind of a GPS tracker location that we could attach to the gear if there was a whale entanglement. In terms of the deeper sea stuff, I'd have to investigate further because a lot of the guys haven't quite developed anything that goes sort of beyond 350 metres, and whether that's even possible. In terms of the spanner crab stuff, look, I think, we're in fairly shallow water. The lower cost, simpler system would be quite good. So I think, the subsea sonics, and I think the other guy that was sort of developing the tubing gear. Look, I think that it seems very simple in its process and mechanism. You're able to then have spares and backups, and it would serve the purpose what we would need. We don't have a huge current problem in close. And you're only sort of fishing in depths of about 100 metres of water. So some of that product would be good. In terms of the gear development, look, I don't know whether anyone's producing anything like that in Australia at this stage. I didn't see anything there that couldn't be produced in Australia, to be honest. Rather than sort of manufacture it and ship it over here. But I think some of the basic technology, like what Bart was doing and a few of the other guys, is very easily adaptable fairly quickly over here. If the resources were put towards it, if that makes sense. So it's definitely, a lot of the gear is close, but then it needs to be adapted to our particular situation anyway in terms of spanner crab. And it would be great to get some stuff to trial. I'd be more than happy to give it a go. It's sort of hard to know exactly how impactful it will be until you really get to play with it. Absolutely, I believe so. I think in our both the blue swimmer crab and the deeper sea stuff that we're doing at the moment. Yes, we have lots of larger ship channel movement and those sort of things, and current issues as well, where a gear as the floats and everything go, get sucked underwater and we can't find them. So definitely, I think there's huge advantages there. On top of that, obviously, then there's the whale entanglement. So we do lose our gear, but we're not always 100% sure where it's gone. So it could be whale, and it could be shipping as well, shipping channel stuff. And then in terms of the internally, I think there's definitely some really cool technology I think that could be utilised in terms of really understanding what's happening on the seabed. A couple of the other guys are developing some pretty cool data collection as part of this whole process as well. and I'm really interested in that. So things like temperature and more current measurements and those sort of things as well, salinity in the water. But obviously, you don't need that on every pot either. So that's just more of a cool thing. And it just efficiency of gear. I think ultimately the less rope that's in the water table, the better. It's just especially where we are. There's a lot of whales travelling through and migrating through. So if we can adapt some of that gear to allow us to have less gear in the water, in case of entanglements as well, I think it's of benefit across the board. I guess the prevention's better than the cure without a doubt. I think that the technology at the moment, as it stands, I don't see anything that's really ready for what we're trying to do, but it's not far off. It just needs some local adaptation. So it would all depend on whether or not developers would want to come out and work with us to get it right. However, in the times that there is an entanglement there, we can't sort of release the gear. Having some kind of a GPS locator that is like in an emergency situation that we can clip onto the gear, cut the rope, and so therefore the rescue team can easily find the whale and the gear. That to me seems it's obviously with preventing entanglement would be number one, but in the spanish crab fishery, because we're going through our gear that quickly, I think it's far more difficult. So it's not necessarily because the lines are in the water. It just happens to be, we're fishing in their migration areas. So it seems to me that the real damage is done when the whale is entangled for a long period of time and drags the gear, halfway around the world. Whereas if they're able to be disentangled within a relatively short period of time, then the damage seems to be minimised. So I guess that's probably the offset. I guess if we can develop something with with the guys that are using sort of the cheaper technology, I definitely think we can use it in the spanish crab industry as well. In time, it just there's a fair bit of testing that needs to go on. Like because our guys go through our gear constantly, and it's the speed at which we go through our gear definitely impacts on the volume of crab that you get. There's definitely a lot more work that needs to be done. Like the gear that's out there now is really just focused for the untended gear fishery. So rather than spanish crab. I would like to send out a big thank you to the guys at Ocean Watch for the proactive approach that you guys have taken. FRDC providing the funding. I was really very impressed with the other guys that were there in terms of the way in which they were looking at this as a problem that can be solved proactively rather than reactively. And I think that's bloody awesome. We need to continue on that road, I reckon.